to the Mattson Shooting Academy Podcast. If you're a clay target shooter, then we have what you're looking for. Speaking with some of the best in the industry about the game you're passionate about. Subscribe to the Clay Lab on YouTube and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or your favorite podcast platform. The Mattson Shooting Academy Podcast is brought to you by Castellani USA, Greenwood Custom Stocks, and Ranger Eyewear. Here's your host, Cody Matson of Mattson Shooting Academy.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Got a special guest on the Mattson Shooting Academy podcast tonight. We have none other than the 2025 U.S. Open champion, Todd Hitch. Todd, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Cody. Looking forward to it.
Man, Todd, what a performance. Tell me how that's feeling.
It feels phenomenal. Yeah, no, it's been a pretty incredible week here after the Open, especially just all the text messages, congratulations and stuff has been truly amazing. All the support everybody showed me.
Man, that's fantastic. You probably had to keep your phone on charge just to keep up with all the messages.
Yeah, Monday and Tuesday, I spent pretty much my entire day on the phone. My estimate as far as I responded back to 300 or 400 people in that time.
Well, you got to be feeling the love then, that's for sure.
Yes, no, it was very cool for sure.
Well, Todd, I know there's a ton of people pulling for you. I always love to see you do well. You're one of the nicest, most humble, hardworking guys in the sport. And, I can't think of a more deserving person for the win. So again, congrats on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, put in a 189 on the U.S. Open main event. But let's back up a little bit, right? So first day you shot Winchester, second day was Promatic, third was Beretta. But there had to be a lot of preparation led up to this tournament and everything. So let's back up. We know what the result, but back it up for me. How did that go?
Yeah, no. So this time I specifically scheduled one of my goals this year is spend a little more time in the house. That way I can have a little bit better dedicated practice routine like I did a couple years ago. Last year, I felt like I was a little bit on the road too much. So this time I had essentially 20 dedicated practice days, whether that was at the home resting or outside pulling the trigger after lessons. So I would say I averaged between 1,500 to 2,000 shells in that period, to kind of about 100 shells a day on average, whether that was 100 shells one day or a case and half the next day, and then 2 days break. So I feel like my game coming off of last year I had kind of off year, kind of transitioning back and forth on some equipment. And so we really kind of made a goal, hit this year hard. So biggest thing for me was just getting back to my practice routine. Like the biggest thing I do is when I work on my timing. Kind of anybody goes, timing's number one thing in this game. I feel like last year my timing window had gotten a lot smaller, which I'm all about having the biggest timing as far as the longest timing window, because therefore you have more room for error in the shot. I felt like I was kind of making a push up or kind of jumping at the bird at the end of my shot. So I really worked on just kind of smoothing out my shot. I did that through working on my rotating with my body. Then the biggest thing is not jumping with my eyes. I had a kind of a tendency when I got anxious a little bit last year, or we'll say less confident would be the best way to put it. Well, I would almost false start with my eyes, and my eyes would end up looking at the gap rather than looking true like the bud. So I'd see a little bit more muzzle, and I pull the trigger. My impact point's a little high, so if I see the muzzle, I go high on stuff. So I got to make sure I really settle my eyes before I start my move, and that's really the biggest thing that kind of helped me win. I would say this weekend was just I was able to, throughout the whole weekend, work on setting my eyes, seeing the bird first, and then almost reacting to the bird. Not instinctual by any means, but letting my eyes guide the shot.
Wow. So there's a lot to unpack right there. Okay, so you touched on a lot of really, really big elements. All right. So when you say timing, what are you specifically referring to on timing? Is it when everything combines in the shot with the visual and the feel, or what is your definition of timing?
So I'd say there's two different things of timing. I'd say you have your visual timing as far as when you see the bird first and when your eye tells you pull the trigger, and then you have the timing of when your hands and body are connected to the target when they pull the trigger. For me, when my timing is perfect, I say perfect, it's when both those timings are in sync. So my eyes and hips and body all move as one with the clay, and it's one fluid motion. So there's no, I see it now to the hips. It's the second I'm seeing it, my whole body's moving as one with the clay, and my hands are on the line, moving on the line of the bird, not cutting up to the target.
All right, folks, we'll be right back after a sponsor segment. Folks, are you missing clays and wondering where everything's going? ShotCam can help. It's a lightweight camera that attaches under your barrel to record every shot with the red dot reticle showing where your barrel is pointed at the moment of truth. Just turn it on. It automatically saves everything. Pretty dummy proof. Instantly replay the videos on your phone, and they are clear enough to even see the pellets in the air. I've used it myself and love how it shows what I'm doing right or wrong, and I use it with my students a lot to prove to them what they're doing with the gun and where their pellets are going. I recommend it for my students to practice with, and you can link it up as much as you'd like to. Get it at shotcam.com with code THECLAYLAB, one word, for 10% off. Average shooter could probably see as much as 10% improvement after the first 30 days of using the camera. That's ShotCam, spelled shot, then cam with a K.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. No. And there's definitely a rhythm to that shot and a flow to it. So you mentioned you spent more time at home. So I'm assuming you have a training field at home?
Yes, yeah, I've got my own practice facility on our family farm. We've got about 10 pneumatic traps out there.
Very nice. And when you're working on crafting that timing, what are there specific shots? I mean, there's long window shots, right? Slow developing. There's very quick stuff. Do you start slow, work to fast, or do you have any sort of rhythm with that?
I do, yeah. So actually, I'll catch myself. I got to make sure I stay on top of changing my targets because I will shoot the same target over and over again because I'm not looking off of a gap. I'm shooting off of my eyes.
Yeah.
I can kind of shoot the same bird over and over and memorize it. For me, I feel like as a right-handed shooter, the bird I shoot first at all my practices is a quartering bird from the right that's showing full dome. It's roughly eye level, and it's an arc the entire time. It's got, say, medium to fast speed on it, to where I can't shoot it carefully as far as I have to kind of see it go and, say, take it aggressively without my eyes in the shot. I'll go shoot that bird. I'll do it 5 times in a row as a single. And when I say 5 times, I was in 5 good moves, good timing, and good breaks. They're all center punches. And then after I do that, I'll go into Shondale, right to left or left to right. And then I'll start working on repels. And then I'll start working on various challenging birds after that. But that's how I start all my practices. And no matter what I do it 5 times in a row before I move on to the next one.
Wow. Yeah. And I like what you said there, 5 good ones, right? Because if we are truly being honest with ourselves, right, there's some moves. We shoot shotguns, right? So we get away with some stuff. But if you're really holding yourself accountable and, being legit there, yeah, you got to do them right.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yep. So I'll do 5 in a row for sporting, and then if I'm working on fit task, I'll do 3 in a row because 3 typically is the maximum you ever shoot a target.
Yeah. That's really good. No, I like your systematic approach to that, and it's obviously working. So I pulled some stats here, and Todd, these numbers are just super impressive to me. So 2025 Winter Blast, 49 out of 50, 97 out of 100, RC Cup, 97 out of 100, RC Cup, 98 out of 100. RC 191 out of 200. And man, it just goes on. And I mean, you are holding an average of right at 95. And I mean, that is just super strong.
Thank you. Yeah, and I would say so. After kind of having an off year last year, it's probably the most motivated I've been for a year before. So I'm really looking forward to kind of see what this year holds. So I'm kind of stepping everything up, taking it as serious as I've ever taken in a year.
That's great. And so do you feel like, the performances last year, do you feel like that fueled you for this year? Like you just really didn't shoot up to your potential, you felt, and just wanted to really go after it?
Yes, I'd say that for sure. I don't really ever judge off of, say, whether somebody's beating me, I got to beat that person, because then you're shooting off of, say, anger of losing to somebody rather than shooting off your heart. My drive comes off of what I do and only what I do in my shooting. If I have a bad day, it's a bad day because I knew what my potential could be on the course. So I only hold myself to say my standards on that. And last year I felt like my year was kind of off, and so I want to make sure this year I'm giving my all. Make sure there's have a lot less room for AO this year as I did last year.
Well, that's great. And in my opinion, this game, and feel free to jump in, but I really feel it's you against yourself, right? And if you aren't shooting to your potential, nobody's beating you, right? It's you not shooting up to your potential, and it's you against yourself or you against the target setter, right? And with that mindset, I think that's extreme ownership of our game, and we have to do that to shoot at a high level.
No, 100% agree with that, because then that's what keeps you raising your ball. Because if you know you can get that one bird better, you keep driving yourself. Because those have been times I've had where I've won a tournament and I feel like I missed 2 targets within 20 yards I shouldn't have. Not necessarily, but I also made them up on harder ones. But I know if my potential, I ran the hard ones. Well, in theory, I should have hit, say, the easy ones, which really none of them are easy still on the scorecards. That's why I kind of used to keep setting my ball higher, because that's the point. It's kind of when you get to the top, what kind of keeps where that keeps fueling yourself and keeping you motivated.
Yeah, definitely. So when, I agree with you in the round, there's birds that, maybe are considered a separator bird or something, but it always comes down to 1 or 2. And it is that bird at 20 yards that we missed that, hurts us the most on that. So, what is your mindset in practice? Do you even worry about the really long, far, hard birds, or do you just continue working on that build up, like you said, quartering and then Shondell type stuff?
So I always, biggest thing I work on is just so one of my biggest things is consistency. You're really the only consistent thing in this sport, because every target's a variable. Speed, wind, everything, just nature itself can change it. So I always make sure basically keep myself consistent in my technique. And if I can do that, well, then in theory, I should be able to kill all the birds I'm supposed to kill. And then in that moment, say we get that big separator station, I have to be able to jump onto my A game, which would be, say, aggressive, perfect timing, no room for error, and be able to pull off that run on that separator station. If I can work on all those targets, say 20 yards to 40 yards, I'd say that's the average kind of standard bird on a sporting clays course. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, 100%.
So if I can, most of my practice, I'd say my practice is minimum 75% in those targets.
Yeah.
And then and it also depends on how I'm shooting in practice. Say, like when I mentioned that quartering bird, sometimes it takes me 3 boxes of shells to get that quartering bird 5 times go perfectly like I want it. So if that's the case, well then it's okay. Today my timing's off a little bit. I need to work on getting the birds I need to hit. That way, if I'm in a tournament and I feel that timing off, I know what I need to do in order to run those targets I'm supposed to hit.
Yeah. I love the honesty there about, hey, sometimes it takes me, 3 boxes of shells to get those 5 right that I wanted. And I think people don't really understand that, man, I shot a whole box of shells at that bird and, I hit it, a couple times. It's like, yeah, but sometimes you need to do that, right? Sometimes you just got to stand there and grind on that until you do figure it out, or even more so until you can't do it wrong, right? That's a big difference.
Definitely. I'd say on that, big thing is to also, when you put yourself in that situation where you're sitting there missing, if you're hitting everything off the bat, well, then you're not challenged at all. So you automatically need to be working on something. Because I've had it before where I've stepped up, ran the 5, just hit them off the bat, but I just shot them. I didn't actually work on my technique when I shot them. I just stepped up and shot them. My technique fell off. I ran them, but I didn't work on anything. So in theory, you broke them, but you had no benefit to set you up for the future.
Yeah. That's super insightful. And you coach as well. And how many times do you see a student maybe miss the 3rd bird or, the last bird or something? I mean, what is your opinion on that? Why do you think that occurs?
I think the biggest thing is you have to watch the student to be able to understand. I'd say the common thing though would be it's either a let up of focus. So that could be the student goes from, I call it going from technique oriented to result oriented, where the student starts focusing more on breaking the last 2 pails and working on the technique that's going to get them to break the last 2 pails.
Yeah.
So and that's something I'm very big on. Like we'll use an example this last day of the U.S. Open. As I mentioned earlier, my confidence wasn't my confidence wasn't super strong after coming off last year. So I knew this year, okay, I really need to see if I can win early on and get my confidence back up. Here I am last weekend leading the U.S. Open, tied with Grayson Ponder. He's got 68 bird course. I got 66 bird course. We pretty much have to shoot perfect on the course. Already a little shaky, a little nervous first couple of stations, but in my routine, the biggest thing I did, I stayed process oriented. So what in my technique is going to cause me to get the results I want. So when I stepped in that station, all of my stations, especially the first 3 stations when I was really tight. Every single time I stepped up, I would breathe. I would tell myself, look at the bird, turn the hips, stay aggressive. And I told myself that, and I said it in the middle of all my pails. That way, occupied my mind. Because I had a couple of times in my pre-shot routine, it was like, oh, Todd, all right, don't miss this one. It's like, well, it did come up like my second and third station, without a doubt, thoughts came in my head. But because I was so focused on my process and my technique of looking at the bird, seeing it first, staying aggressive, rotate my body with the bird, it was able to keep my mind on the process, which gave me the result I wanted.
Man, that is super insightful. And, those negative thoughts, I don't know where they come from, right? If that's some self-image thing deep down or something, but they will boil up, right? They will come up. And I think you got to recognize that right away, because if your mind entertains that thought for any period of time without you shutting it down immediately, right, you're going to manifest the miss. It's going to happen. And, we've all done it. But I love to hear you say that you just stuck with the things that you knew would get the results, and you just stayed with that the whole time.
I would say on that real quick, so I know people have mentioned before, oh, top shooters don't have those thoughts coming in the head. Well, that was a perfect example. It's not that we don't have them. It's just we don't focus on them. We go stick to the process on it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's great. I mean, like, we're all human, everybody's flawed. And, I think that hearing you say that, US Open champ, I mean, that's going to put a lot of things in perspective for a lot of people. And the fact that, you said you were nervous or tight on those first 3 stations, and the thing that helped you overcome that was your processes. And no, that is awesome. So those are the first 3 stations. How did the middle of that course go? Did you find your flow? Did you loosen up?
Yeah, so I'd say I'll walk you through the course of station 1. Station 1, 2, and 3. I'd say first 2 stations I'd say I used up all my golden BBs, as far as I kind of chipped my way through the first 3. Not necessarily the targets were the hardest ones in the course, but I had some transition. I kept cracking them in half. I even Connor Daniels on the squad behind my ton, but after I walked away from one station, I told him, like, hey man, I think I used up all my golden BBs in the first 3 stations. And so I was on a serious note though, so I told myself, going in the course, if I can get by the first 3 stations, I'll be good. Like, I knew if I can get by my first 3 stations, I typically will always shoot a good score, and the course is pretty standard. So when I killed my first pair on my 3rd station, it was like just kind of a breath of fresh air came over me, and it just, things started clicking in, and everything was center punch from the rest of the course. So, and that was station 3. Chipped my first pair, center the next 2. Then I won the next 9 stations. So I ran my first 11 stations on a butter, go to station 13, the MIDI quarter and butter underneath my feet. Also, I knew I got a little anxious on it because I knew there was 2 stations left. If I ran this one, well, I set myself up really, really good and killed my first pail. And when we talk about as far as sticking to the process, I distinctly remember on my second pail, after I'd missed my second target, the big crosser on station 13, the first thing that came to my head after I opened my gun was I didn't tell myself to stay aggressive. I let myself get careful.
Oh, wow.
I instinctively had that thought come in my head. So next pail loads up, stay aggressive, killed the pail. Then we go final station. Station 1 on Bretta was the tower batu off the pond, cordon belly bird kind of arcing across the water, followed by batu off the tower that was kind of veiling with the wind. We had two squads backed up on it. I watched it, felt very confident going into it. And I was all right. So I step in, call pull in the first pail, kill my first bird. Second bird comes out like, seems to me in my head like 10, 15 feet low. Wind pushed it down. And I pull my gun down, bang, miss it. And I'm like, oh man. So I really felt like I had 64. I needed one above 64. And I was like, all right, let's kill these last 2. All right, kill the next 2 pail. Turn around, and it was like, people high fiving me. I'm like, I think it'll be close, because I figured how well Grayson had been shooting all week, straight in the butter course, good on the Winchester. I had estimated him shooting a 64 on Pomac, which would have been a tie. So I just automatically, as I stepped out of the station, was like, all right, off time. And just go ahead and get prepared. That way, in case there's a shoot off, I'm already there. And they were hopefully ahead of my competitor as far as mentally prepared for the shoot off. And then about 30 minutes goes by, and I got a text saying that Grayson shot 60 on the course. And then that allowed me to win the US Open. heck of a feeling. I would say on that course though, that was, as far as we're talking about sticking the process, every single pair on that course, I told myself the same thing. We kind of have a joke where a buddy of mine calls it, we call it the Terminator mode. It's just like automatically my body language changes and it's just lock in, eyes on the prize only. There's no matter what anybody said to me, there was nothing that was going to really get me out of that mode. And then I forgot to tell myself my process on that one and let that first bird slip by. And that, who knows, that may have caused a miss on the last station because I had just missed on my first pair. I hadn't fully shook it off yet. That's something I guess I have to get back in that position and find out.
Yeah. Well, I love Terminator mode. That's awesome, right? That's your alter ego. So, having previously, been a target setter and, I've worked for Anthony at the World Shoot and managed that SL2 course, I get to observe, not only being a shooter and a coach, but I get to observe everybody come through. And almost all the top shooters do very similar things at the station. So when you view the targets with the squad and, say you're not first or on deck, what are you doing? I mean, are you standing right there watching every single bird of the squads in front of you? You mentioned you were, a couple squads backed up, or what is your routines? What do you do?
My biggest thing is I watch until I'm confident. I do feel like if you overwatch a target, automatically it will almost build more anxiety in the shot than anything because you watch it too much. It's kind of like I feel like when if I went and practiced the course the day before, shot the course, now I'm shooting it for pressure, I'm automatically going to be thinking about the bird on station 13 when I have 12 more stations to go before I even worry about on it. So I typically will watch all the show players, watch until I'm confident, in which that's typically either one or two shooters in front of me. Typically it's 4-man squad, so almost most of the squad, whether that is I'm intently looking at every single pair with my hand up, or I'm just watching the targets to be a good squad mate to help call birds, and if there's a chip, kind of help them out. But I'm still watching them and learning stuff off them, but I may not. Once my plan's made, I'll just watch them on that.
Yeah.
So then say if I'm shooting second and there's one shooting in front of me, if it's a full pair station, I typically watch 3 of the pairs. Watch the first 2, don't watch the third one, watch the 4th one. And that kind of helps me because my plan in theory should be made by after those first 2 pairs, because otherwise that's giving me 4 pairs to look at, 2 show pairs plus first 2 shooters pairs, and then take a break with my eyes and then watch that last pair, get fresh back on my brain, then step in there. Go to town. Hopefully go to town.
Nice. Yeah. No, and that's, I find, just on a personal level, if I watch all of the shooters' targets and stuff, I just get burnt out doing that. And, I'm kind of with you on that, getting confident, getting my plan, knowing my whole point, whatever piece of the target I've identified that I got to see. And once I have that, if I'm 3-4 deep in there, I find myself back at the cart, getting some water, refilling my pocket or something, and then stepping back up and being that good squad mate and, watching for chips and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I find, boy, if I stand there and just watch them all, boy, I burn out a lot quicker.
Yeah, no, definitely. And my routine on that will kind of vary per course. If one course is throwing a lot of big belly birds where you have kind of more, essentially there's more time with the target, I may not watch quite as many. But that's because the bird has time, so I can really watch it a lot. Like the Bladder course, because I knew it was the easier course of the 3 courses is what the scores look like. On that one, it was, okay, pay attention to every detail, watch as many as I can. But the biggest thing is don't overwatch. That's why I was conscious of. Just don't overwatch to where you get anxious on it, and which would be, maybe I overwatched on that station 13, and that's what caused me to forget to tell myself to stay aggressive on that one pail. So it kind of varies on that. And that's something I feel like the softer the course, sometimes the more precise I am with that, because I feel like there's less room where you just can't, on those easy birds, you really can't say, and I'd say easy birds, none of them are easy to on a scorecard. You really can't, there's no room for error with them because somebody's going to hit all of them.
You're darn right. Somebody's going to. Yeah. And that is so true. Now, forcing yourself to stay aggressive, man, I find that to be a really hard thing to do, right? Just keep that gas pedal pressed nonstop the whole round. The minute it seems like you get careful or a little more conscious of the gap or muzzle, any of those things, it just jars you back awake, and it's like, dang, that was just such a razor's edge there. But then there's the too aggressive, right? There's the the making it happen. So it's a razor's edge. So how do you navigate that? I gotta stay aggressive, I can't let up at all, but not go over that line.
So that's something I monitor it. Would be the best way to put it. So essentially, that's what I was talking about earlier about my eyes jumping in the gap and stuff. So when I get too aggressive, I call it false starting. It's almost anticipating. You're so ready, you go too soon on it, and that's something you really have to monitor that with your eyes. As far as when you're on, and that's something you watch for on each pail. So kind of after I shoot the pail, I ask myself, okay, what do I see? What do I feel? It takes me like 2 seconds to go through that process in my head as I'm ejecting the shells, and it's just enough time to let me say, oh, did I feel my body get tight? And I stop rotating with my hips. Okay, so now I'm getting tight. Okay, let's relax, breathe, let up, and that's just stuff that's going through my head in the pre-shot. The next pail on that. I feel like it's definitely easier to get under aggressive than over aggressive. So let's say more or less get careful rather than overly aggressive on it. For me, typically how I would judge that is how long, when we were talking about timing earlier, is how long I feel like I've got the bird dead and killed, except I've still moved extra feet with the target. And so say bird's 40 yards, I'm shooting it halfway, 40 yards out, 60 yards across, shooting it 30 yards out in the flight. That's my kill spot. That's when my eyes are seeing the best, and I lock on for it. My first pair, I might go bang, kill it, perfectly at 30 yards out. My next pair, I might kill at the same spot, but I've spent an extra 15 feet with my face in the gun. Still killed it, but okay, now I didn't break it as hard, didn't see it as well, faces the gun for too long. Okay, and being able to monitor that during the shot, that is, I feel like, one of the key things to keep yourself from getting careful.
Yeah.
Because then if I can feel that little hold in the shot, or even say, typically it's not 15 feet early, it's typically you hit your break point and then you just hold it to just, it's not necessarily, what it is just your brain trying to perfect the shot. When you're shooting 400 pellets out at the end of the gun, you don't need to perfect it, let it happen.
Yeah. I mean, what a perfect description. You have to let the shot happen, right? You can't make that shot happen. And there's that fine line again of spending enough time necessary to connect with the target and really get that deep sense that, hey, this shot's going well. But then you can pretty easily cross into that riding territory, right? And that not a lot of good things come after that. And you gotta.
And I'll say on that, so like say we go day 1 and 2 of US Open. We start on Winchester, then we went to Pomatic. Winchester, I shot pretty carefully. First station we stepped up on, I told Dad this morning, I feel pretty good, and I'm gonna go without warm up this morning. I'm not necessarily someone that shoots a bunch of warm up, but I might go shoot 20 shells to my gun, just make sure my eyes are in sync. And first station, that was station 2 on Winchester, which had that big 55, 60 yard cross. I was like, oh man, it would great to have 20 shells to the gun already. Stepped up there, ran the station, but I was like, ooh. I got a little nervous. I typically don't ever get nervous off that, but just kind of felt like, I wasn't fully awake. And then go to the next station to true pair of Shondales. I'd say the easier bird was the one you shoot first. Second Shondale was probably another 15, 20 yards out. Neither one was super easy. And I missed the softer one, killed the hard one. I was like, okay, all right, relax. All right, killed the next pair, got careful again, lost it. And then I just kind of wondered, like I call it almost bleeding. You bled through the course, just one random hill. And for me, if you looked at my scorecard on Winchester and Pomatic especially, it was kill my first pail, dead loss. Kill my next pail, out of the station. And then go next station, ran it. Go next one after that, kill my first pail. And just all it is just I held the bird a little bit too long. And I think maybe because I realized how careful I was getting and what it was causing me on the Pomatic course. Because I distinctly know if I could have kept myself aggressive like I did on Sunday, I probably would have shot 3 to 4 birds better on Pomatic. I shot 64, shot well, but I know distinctly the 3 of my 4 misses on that course were from me getting careful and not realize I was getting careful until after it was too late. I already pulled the trigger, made the miss happen. So I think because of that, and I found that out on my third to last station, Pomatic. I got aggressive, ran the next 3 stations out, and I think because I realized it there, that's what was able to keep me in that aggressive mode going in, and keeping that. The biggest thing is keeping it up front on my brain. Well, that's number one priority going into Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. And but your experience level and everything, you've realized that a performance can't be had unless you stay aggressive the whole time, right? And just keep shooting. I joke with students like, come on, let me see you shoot like you don't care about missing. Right. And that's kind of how it looks from an observer. Like, man, Todd's really going after it and just, letting it rip. And, but that's just you being aggressive and going after that target.
Yep. And I'd say another way we could word it, because aggressive kind of me, when I say aggressive, I think somebody like putting the hands up, like I'm aggressive, I'm getting ready to tackle somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think on that, I think the biggest thing is it's just you're shooting off your eyes, you're letting the shot happen. And it's still, you're not overly amped up on the shot, but you're shooting controlled and you're not getting careful. You're just letting your eyes happen, letting everything flow. And just as you see the bird good, you pull the trigger, you're trusting yourself. And that's like when I say aggressive, that's what I mean by that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, that's a good clarification on that. And then, you mentioned that it took you a couple stations to realize that you were getting careful. I think that's something that people struggle with, is recognizing the fact that they're actually being careful, right? And you've coached enough, you've been over somebody's shoulder, you see them get to that optimal break point and you're thinking, man, pull the trigger, right? And then that bird goes on and then they turn to you confused because they didn't even realize that they had done that. And I think that is hard to identify, but then when you do unleash it and just turn it loose, it feels completely different to me. It's just way different.
Definitely. And that's actually one of my favorite moments as a coach is when what I do is when somebody's doing it and they can't really, and a lot of times it's not that they're even aware of it, it's because they don't know what the other feeling, they don't know what the aggressive feeling is. And so I'll tell them, trust me on this. The second I say bang, pull the trigger, just trust me on it. And as big as I say, trust me. And almost every single time when if they pull the trigger, the second I say bang, they center the target and they turn around and just like have that wow look on their face on it. And that's exactly that's one of my favorite parts of coaching.
Oh yeah, and they think you're some kind of wizard that can make that happen, and it is cool, but it is really blatantly obvious over the shoulder when they need to pull the trigger, and yeah, that's really cool. And so going a little bit further into the careful, right? So there's mechanically careful, there's like riding the target, but there's also visually careful, right? And we only have 100% focus, right? So if I allocate 90% of my visual attention to a specific piece of the target and I'm 5% aware of the gap and I'm 5% aware of the gun, if those scales tip for me, if my visual ratio goes more heavy gap or heavy gun, right, that's also being careful. That's my eyes darting to that gap. And to me, that's checking, or however you want to describe it. But do you feel something similar to that at times?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I'd say the biggest thing for me on that is it depends on the bird. Because, like I say, a bird takes a foot of lead. My muzzle awareness, my conscious muzzle awareness has gone way up because I got to get close on that. So I would agree with you on that. But I would just tell people watch it on each bird, because there is a point I do feel like in somebody's shooting career, at least I'd say kind of talk to your mind when I was coming up, you have to see some muzzle. You have to be more muzzle conscious because you're learning the sight picture. You're learning the biggest thing is you're learning the feel of the shot. You're learning what it looks like when you pull the trigger. Okay, that's the center punch. And then you can really, as you get more advanced, then you can really work on just, okay, let's have that 95 and 5%, 95% on the clay, 5% on the bird on that. Because I think some people almost, when they get started, are too far on the, okay, look at the bird only and only see the bird. Because you can hit like that, but you typically shoot just off your instinct and it won't be consistent. Mm-hmm. And so I've got a guy, a local buddy, he does a lot of that. And if I tell him just like, it's one of the only times I ever tell someone, like, see the muzzle before you pull the trigger. Not don't look at, but know where it's at. See the gun and the bird moving together. Have it roughly 60-40. It kills all the birds, because if not, you get going a little fast on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and seeing the gun but not looking at it is really important, right? If you're looking at the gun, right, that's a whole different thing, and that's a confusing thing for people too.
Oh, definitely on that, and I'd say that kind of varies, kind of like looking at the hood of your car while you're turning. Nobody really does that. You just look and turn, and you know it's in your peripheral. At least I hope you don't.
Yeah, you're gonna check that curb if if you're doing that. That's good. Well, so you just kind of bounce back to when you were coming up and when you were starting. So I'm currently talking to U.S. Open, Todd Hitch champion. But how if there's somebody that's a young junior shooter right now coming up that has visions of one day winning a U.S. Open, what did your path look like coming up? Did you come up through SCTP? Did you do all that? Did you do more NSCA?
Yeah, so I started in SCTP. Nobody, so kind of a little side story on it. Nobody in my family had really ever shot sporting clays until I did. So it's all new to everybody in my family.
Wow.
I grew up hunting on a family farm. Actually, shot my first ever gun. It kicked me so bad I was afraid to shoot for 3 years.
Wow.
And my dad was fine, like, Todd, you're going to foot, you're wearing a jacket, shoot the gun. And I shot it, broke my first clay. I was like, oh man, this is pretty fun. Let's do this again. And then then one of my local hunting buddies told me about the SCTP team. So I started on SCTP in roughly kind of back half of 2015, really early 2016. Shot out for a year and a half, 2 years. Then 2017, joined the NSCA. That was when they had the E class in April. Shot the Goodell Cup. I tell people it's lucky I still shooting NSCA after my first time. It ended up being weather forecasted for 80 degrees and ended up being high of 50 once we got there. And my dad and I had planned on drip drying, so we were wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and so we about froze to death. He mentioned that was the only time he beat me on the first day, but I came out and got him the second day. So that's 17. But then at 18, I won. My goal for SCTP was, okay, let's get the scholarship offers, let's get the name out, then let's decide what Todd wants to do from there. In 2018, won the Sporting Clays National Championship for SCTP. Okay, that opened the door to any school I could think of at the time. At least they knew my name, started a conversation. Then it was like, okay, well, what does Todd really want to get out of shooting? And it was like, okay, well, for me, it was I want to do this. Let's go. Like I want to be the best. I want to be the Anthony, the Zach, the top shooters out there, or the George Digweed. I want to be there. And so, okay, that's 18. 2019 is okay. Like, kind of going back off of SCTP, and I'd say that was my sophomore year in high school, sophomore year. Oh yeah, it's really focused on only NSCA, and then it was all NSCA. Made master class in 2018, then 19. Saved up my money, bought my first gun. Started with a 686. We started with a Remington 1100, then went to 686. Saved my money up, and got a DT11, and then in 2019, that's when the World Super Final at Northbrook. I ended up qualifying for the World Super Final. Shot in that, and then had enough confidence. Okay, so well, Todd, we did it. Let's go do it again. And, the next shoot, ended up winning the Northeast Regional, and that's you said that's my story on it. If I was gonna give one piece of advice to a youth shooter that's shooting the game, look long term, don't look short term. What's 5-6 years from now? What do you want to get out of shooting? Like for me, I knew this is what I wanted to do. So it was, all right, let's go. We're going all out. Let's go to every shoot. Let's see as much as we can get done. Let's connect with as many people as we possibly can, and let's build the best reputation for your name possible. And a lot of that was just because I knew I wanted to be the best that I could be, and be the best in the industry if that was what God allowed me to do.
Yeah.
And I know I coach a lot of kids, but they are serious in high school. They want to be very competitive in high school, and they just like to have the opportunity to have college paid for through a scholarship, which is fantastic because that's exactly what SCTP was meant to do. That's their goal. And then once you figure out what your goal is, don't let anything stop you from getting it.
That's right. Yeah. Put that goal in place and just put the blinders on and keep going towards it.
Yes. Yeah. So that'd be what I'd say to anybody coming up to a youth shooter on that. And then just don't be afraid to ask for help. Pretty much everyone in the games will help you. And then just go pedal to the metal, give it your all.
Yeah, no, that is solid advice. And so coming up, who was your first coaches, or who coached you, or do you still work with a coach, or who do you work with there?
So I didn't take a lesson to hit master class. I studied as much as I could. I watched every YouTube video out there, figuring and just kind of dissected how I thought people shot, how they turned with the birds, all off of YouTube, and then. And once I hit master class, it was okay. So now we're in the big fish bowl now. So we got to get fine tuned. I shot with Tom C at the South Central Regional. He had shot a 197, and we ended up doing a clinic with him and Kevin and Michael. I shot with Tom the first morning, and then started seeing Tom for lessons after that. And when I say like lessons, I took like 2 or 3 lessons from Tom, and then Tom was like, "All right, let's go to Wendell." Took 2 or 3 or 4 lessons from Wendell, and then I went back to Tom. Tom just lived closer to me, and he's close to my age. Both good. And then I probably personally, as a competitive shooter in the game, I would love to have a coach so I could coach. Somebody could tell me what I'm doing every once a month. That'd make a lot less headache on me. And then I won't have to. There would just be me shooting on it instead of me coaching myself plus shooting on it.
Right.
But I'll give Tom a little hard time. So Tom broke his arm in 2021, and so I was struggling a little bad, and I was like, "Tom, I need some help real quick." I was like, "I just need," and this is say Sunday. I'm shooting the Gamel Cup the coming weekend, and so 5 days later, I was like, "Tom, I need some help." So I go over, take a lesson with Tom, and I shoot every single day that week. I mean, I shot 1,000, 1,500 shots that week. I went out and shot 99 at the Gamel Cup. And I texted Tom. I said, "Hey, I want you to come watch me shoot this last day. I want you to be here with me. If it pulls through, I would like for you to be here." Because Tom won the Gamel Cup, which was my first ever NSCA shoot. So he was the guy in my eyes, and probably still is. And then won the Gamel Cup. And then the week after that, I went down to Southeast Regional and shot the regional. Finished second or third in the 5 stand, won the prelim, won a prelim, I believe, and then won the make or break, won the main event, and won the fit task, and probably shot one of the greatest feats of my fit task shooting period on that fit task. I ended up, and then Tom texted me, said, "That was your final lesson. I'm competing against you now." He never I said that word for word, but he said something along the line as a joke and stuff. But the reason I can say this is because we were texting the other day about getting back together and shooting some more together and stuff.
He's going to cut you off.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. Yeah. No, that's, I think it's pretty amazing that you went to YouTube University and got yourself to masterclass. But I mean, don't we live in such a fantastic time? I mean, of just information shared and availability. I mean, yeah, you have to disseminate some of the good from the bad, but geez, there's so much good content out there now that you can learn a ton from it.
Definitely. I'd say one of the things that helped me the best from watching that was, I'd say you can almost say lucky on, or I was just kind of wise about it, was I felt like I just happened to, the information that I was getting from that, how I processed it in my head was like I visualized the guy shooting in my head. And so I was kind of able to filter through the good info and bad info. As far as what did I really take in from those videos? Okay, this part was beneficial to me, but I don't shoot anything like this other part. So, and I was kind of able to weave myself through that to get that info from there.
Yeah. And I think you made an important statement there. You built your style, and you took tidbits from this person and that person and built your form. Because I mean, I just think that there's certain styles that are more conducive, that just work for us, and we got to go with that. And that's the same thing with coaching, right? You got to find a coach that suits your style, and maybe your core methodology on that too.
Yeah, and I'd say there's a lot of pretty common people say that I shoot a lot like Wendell and Tom C. I'd say I do shoot like them similar. I'd say maybe my mental thought on stuff is quite a bit different than those. And then I do a little bit other stuff as far as different techniques here and there. So I'd say we look similar, but I'd say there's a little bit more variations underneath under the skin.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, in the modern game that, we need to be, versed in a lot of different things. Because, right, I mean, the presentations are changing so much, the thrower technology, that new Promatic Chandelle that can throw straight vertical. And I mean, there's a lot of things that, just totally different that we have to adapt to. And let's face it, we're going to see it in competition. So you can't be rigid in your ideology and that stuff. You gotta do what works.
Keep learning, keep adapting, and go from there and stuff. So always got to keep evolving.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, obviously riding high off of the U.S. Open win. What's the rest of the year have in store for you? What kind of goals do you have set now, and what keeps those fires burning?
I'd say five still burning from last year. I'd say that's number one thing on that
Good.
guard. That last year was that was the first year, and since I won my first regional, that I did not win a championship or did not really finish. So I had good finish at Open last year. As the rest of the year, as far as the regional finish, I don't think I didn't make the podium my second regional last year. That lights the fire for this year as far as every shoot goes. Big thing on my goal is one championship tour. I won it in 2000, so I won it in 2023. So I'd like to win it again here, and then really just keep one. I would say it's almost, and I always tell people make specific goals. My goal this year is just do the best I can every shoot, and it sounds very broad, but that's particular. Like every championship tour, like biggest thing is I do not want to go to a tournament this year without the feeling of when I step front of that property that I can't win the shoot.
Yeah.
Last year, kind of end of the year, my confidence kind of got to get down. It was like, well, I want to be able to post pictures on Instagram and kind of market myself that way. I want to let the podium market myself.
Yeah. Right.
So I would say that's really my biggest motivation this year. And so,
Good.
Definitely all the championship tour events. Would definitely like to win. I've won a lot of the championship tour events as far as regionals, but there's two or three of them I'd like to check off the box. Clearly, nationals been close a couple of times on that. That'd be cool to see the deal there, and then see if I can get the Western regional and I think the North Central regional. And then if I win those three events, then I'll and Western regional. I may have said that way, but I'll check all the regional boxes.
Man, that's awesome.
So,
what a great goal.
And then, of course, you have the World Championships in July, so I'll go over to England and go over to Cyprus on that. Did not make the team this year for it, so I'm kind of curious to see. First time going to a World Championship other than my first ever awards in the U.S. outside of the team, so I'll be curious to see kind of what that is like.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're talking about overseas, King's Cup champion. So first American to win that. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that's a pretty cool shoot. So that's outside of Madrid, Spain. Not a lot of people know about that one, but it's to my knowledge, I could easily be mistaken, but it's the oldest shoot in the world.
I pulled up a note here that said it's been going on since 1875.
Yes.
That's wild.
Yeah, so very cool there. And what the biggest thing that was neat about it was the gun club there is one of the oldest gun clubs in the world. And so it's right outside the King's Palace in Madrid. And then the coolest part for me about it was when I won that shoot was that the trophy I was awarded that I get to keep for the rest of my life. Was actually awarded to a guy in 1940. He passed away, and his family chose to donate it back. So not only is the trophy's 3 feet tall, it's just as long as my leg is, literally, and comes up to my hip. But it's over 85 years old.
That is super cool.
That's pretty cool. I'm not necessarily a history guy by any means, but that's pretty cool.
That is really, really cool. No, that one, that's going to be a memory for a lifetime on it. Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Very cool. Well, Todd, I'm rooting for you all the time, buddy. And I seriously appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast. And, this is just really giving a good glimpse into, the mindset of a champion on this stuff and just what it takes to do that. And, I appreciate the honesty and all the emotion and feeling into that because, we're all human. And I think people perceive that maybe the top shooters are on a different wavelength, but I think they just do what you said, man. They manage that pressure better, and you are definitely well on your way to putting it all together.
Well, thank you, Cody. Thank you for having me on. And I do have, actually, as far as talking about kind of digital videos, I don't have a clay video come out yet, but I do have a hunting video from when I was in England last year doing driven game. Now I'll post on YouTube so people can keep an eye on that. It's my first one ever, so some feedback would be great because I know it's needed.
Yeah, absolutely. So where can people find you, Todd? I know you do some coaching, and where's home base for you?
Home base for me is in Knoxville, Tennessee. So all my lessons in East Tennessee, if people could email me at lessons with an S at the end of lesson at toddhitch.com, or shoot me a text message at 865-2769. And then for all of my out of state stuff, so Dallas, Nashville, Chicago, other cities as well, those dates will be posted on Score Chaser, or you can find the link to my website at toddhitch.com.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Well, I know Todd Hitch has a lot to offer for anybody listening that wants to get some help with that. So, a great young man and super passionate about the sport. Hey, Todd, thank you so much for coming on the show this evening. I know you're a busy guy. I really appreciate your time. Is there any of your sponsors you want to give a shout out to?
Yes, no, definitely. Big sponsor of Jacqueline's Beef Jerky. They've been huge support over the last 2 years. Cameo Horse Fencing. So that's actually my newest sponsor. It's actually one I'm very excited about because it's outside the industry sponsor. So it's somebody that's looking at getting in the industry and getting more involved, and they provide a great horse fence, and it's a great product. Pomac Traps. Without them, we wouldn't be shooting the championship tour event. And then Remington Ammunition. They've been a huge help with me over say nitro bombs. I call it the golden bullets. And then Kids and Clays, Comp and Chokes, Demo Box, Castellana USA, Quail Creek Sporting Ranch, and Hadley's Field Shop. It's a clothing company out of Dallas that does high-end driven shooting and upland shooting clothing. Without them, I wouldn't be able to be here on the podcast. So thank you all for everything you do for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we know that it takes a lot of support to get us to where we need to be in this game. Those are some awesome sponsors there, and happy to shout them out.
Thank you, Cody.
You bet. Well, Todd, thank you again, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you on the course.
That was good. Thank you, Cody. Good luck, everybody.
Thanks for joining us. Remember to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform to the Clay Lab so you don't miss an episode. Check out MattsonShootingAcademy.com or reach out to Cody at MattsonShootingAcademy@gmail.com. Consider joining as a channel member too by clicking that join button below on YouTube for early access to videos and podcasts. We'll catch you here next time on the Mattson Shooting Academy Podcast.